Why certain Marvel comics can sell for a ton of money. Where it started. In 1938, when Action Comics #1 hit the newsstands, very few people thought about the collectability. The comic was just an inexpensive and disposable form of entertainment. Some kids read them until they fell apart. Some lined their birdcages with them. In the 1950s, a corrupt psychologist persuaded people to burn them, even if kids did treasure them and save them. There was a good chance their mothers would dispose of them while they were away at school or the army. So very few issues of that comic or any other comics from that time period were preserved. Very few were preserved properly. Most have frayed spines and yellowed pages. The one that sold on eBay was one of a handful that still looked as good as the day it was printed. That made it very much in demand by collectors. The value in the condition. But there is no fixed value for such a thing. Demand, willingness, and capability to pay fully define the value. Comic book price guides, such as the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide or GP Analysis, continually collect data from dealers and auction houses about the sales of comic books. This data is compiled to form the price guides. For example, if during 2013, 50 copies of Spider-Man #36 sell and their average sale price is $60, the price guide will be updated for the issue to show a value of $60. It's a little more complicated than that, because the condition of a comic greatly affects its value. A comic with a folded spine or yellowed pages or a torn corner will be less valuable than a comic without damage. Companies such as Certified Guarantee Company have established themselves as standards for grading the condition of comics. They grade on a 10-point scale, with 10 being a comic in absolutely perfect condition. A comic in near mint condition would be a 9.4. A comic in fine condition would be a 6. A comic in good condition would be a 2. The Action Comics #1 is in a wonderful 9-point condition. The data collected from sellers might show that the Spider-Man #36 tended to sell for $90 in near mint condition, $60 in fine condition, and $30 in fair condition. The nostalgia. Now, as to why someone would pay that much, there's a lot of research to be done in the psychology of collecting. It's addictive. I've collected comics since I was 5 years old. I feel like a custodian preserving pieces of history for the future. I feel nostalgia for my childhood. I feel a sense of victory when a lost out issue is found or when a run of issues is completed. There's a pride in having something that others don't have. There's a lot going on in the brain when I'm collecting. It is very pleasurable. There's also an appreciation of art involved. I will never be able to afford a torn out page from a copy of Action Comics #1 that has been urinated on by a cat. But to own an original copy of the comic that started it all, that would be amazing. A little more than 75 years ago, two Jewish kids from Cleveland wrote and illustrated a story that borrowed from the tales they grew up hearing in synagogue. They told the story in a bold new way, and a publisher took a risk and printed it. They created Superman, the hero that kicked off the flood of creativity that has helped define American culture ever since. It is a remarkably important piece of history. It's easy for me to see why a wealthy collector would happily pay $3.2 million to own and preserve such an item. Marvel Comics #1. Heritage Auctions completed a public offering of the highest graded copy of Marvel Comics #1, originally issued in 1939. Known as the starting point for the renowned comic book powerhouse, the ultra-rare comic sold for a whopping $1.26 million. The copy was given a 9.4 rating out of 10 by Certified Guarantee Company and is the highest graded known copy of the comic. According to Newsarama, there are only 2 other copies that have received a rating of 9 or higher. The company was originally owned by a Pennsylvanian mailman who was an avid comic book collector. The auction broke several records, including the most expensive Marvel comic ever sold at a public auction, equally making a record to the auction house. Without question, this is the granddaddy of all Marvel comics, without which we would not have seen the characters and stories we enjoy in today's comics and feature films, shared Ed Jester, Senior Vice President at Heritage Auctions. Just years ago, the first issue of Action Comics, which introduced the famed Superman character, sold for nearly $1 million. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.